trying to do something, as it were, for the common good. Rossetti, whenever he saw a beggar, would empty out his pockets and give every penny that he had in his pockets to the beggar. Morris, whenever he saw someone sleeping on the streets who was a beggar, he would never give a penny. He would go away and work for a world in which there would be no more beggars. So Rossetti was all heart, and Morris was all head. And I think the characteristic that's impressed me most about everything you do in Motec is that you're a combination of both. You use heart and you use head. You use your talents and your intelligence, but also your compassion as well, which has made such a difference in the lives of so many people in Ghana during the years in which you've been involved. I was talking to the representative of the Ghanaian High Commission just a few moments ago, and of course it's a good moment for us to remember just how closely we are connected as countries. We are both members of the Commonwealth. We both have had a common history. We have a wonderful Ghanaian community in this country, and there are so many very solid links between the two of us. And of course, in the next month or so, there will be elections, and who, on a day like this, would want to mention elections? But there we are. There may be a vacancy going for a candidate in Ghana, I don't know. We'll be watching those. We have huge admiration here at Westminster for the people of Ghana. I was privileged to host a visit by the former president of Ghana to my university in Liverpool, when John Kufuor came, and we gave him an honorary fellowship of the university, the highest honour we can give, not least because we were so impressed by him as a man, as a lawyer, as a human rights advocate, as a man, and indeed his wife, the midwife, for all they had done to try and build the civic life of the capital of a country like Ghana. Huge achievements. And sometimes when you hear negative things, both about politicians, politics, and indeed about situations in some parts of Africa as well as Europe and America, we often fail to think about the positives. There's an old saying, isn't there? Accentuate the positives, eliminate the negatives. Let's think more about the great achievements of places like Ghana. Sometimes, though, we can feel like the boy on the beach who, walking along, sees scores and scores, hundreds of starfish that have been washed up by the tide. And the boy goes along, throwing them back into the ocean. And the inevitable adult comes along and says, "What are you trying to do? It won't make any difference. There are too many of them." And the boy looks at the adult and says, "It will make a difference to that one," as he throws that starfish back into the sea. So what you have been doing in Ghana makes a difference to that one. We can sometimes say, well, the world is too big and I'm so small, words of Robert Louis Stevenson, and I don't like it at all, at all. Or you can say, look, I may not be able to solve all the problems of the world, but I can certainly solve some of them. So let's do something for someone. And on what beach are you walking? Well, Ghana, with its population of 20 million people, is now one of Africa's most urbanized nations. City dwellers have risen from just 4 to 14 million in just the last 3 decades. And that poses, of course, any number of challenges, from infrastructure and housing to jobs and health provision. It's a successful model, as we'll see again in the forthcoming election, of multi-party democracy. It has a functioning and active legislature. It has a credible and effective opposition. And any democracy can be measured by the effectiveness of its opposition. It has an independent judiciary. It's got a vibrant media and an increasingly well-developed civil society. But as we have seen in the UK and US, democratic government must never leave people behind. There's always a need to do more to engage with people and their deepest needs, and that will be particularly true in often very urban settlements. People mustn't feel that they have been left behind by democratic politicians, because if they do, then they will turn against the institutions themselves. In September 2000, Ghana was one of the 189 member states of the United Nations to sign the Millennium Declaration that pledged to end extreme poverty and deprivation by 2015. Well, 3 of the MDGs are directly related to health. Goal 4 is to reduce child mortality. Goal 5 to improve maternal health. And Goal 6 to combat HIV/AIDS, malaria and other diseases. Ghana, as you No, many of you who have been and seen and worked on the ground are well aware that it faces a double burden of disease. There's a high prevalence of communicable diseases, including malaria, HIV, tuberculosis, diarrhea, as well as a rising incidence of non-communicable diseases such as cardiovascular disease, cancers, chronic respiratory disease, diabetes and sickle cell diseases. Each year, over 86,000 Ghanaians are estimated to die from lifestyle diseases, with over half of these being under the age of 70. And according to a recent report published in Ghana, it's facing a particular challenge from high rates of malnutrition. And then there's the old enemy of malaria. Malaria is a leading cause of both mortality and morbidity in Ghana. Over 60% of hospital admissions of children under the age of 5 and 8% of hospital admissions of pregnant women are related to malaria. According to a report published by our own DFID, there were an estimated 3.2 million cases of malaria in 2008, of which 900,000 cases related to children under the age of 5. Difficulties in tackling the disease include, of course, things like poor waste disposal and drainage systems, which result in stagnant water, limited diagnostic laboratory facilities. Fewer than 14% of malaria diagnoses are laboratory-based. Funding gaps, lack of public confidence in first-time treatment drugs, gaps in prescribing knowledge of health workers, still insufficient mosquito nets, public misconceptions. And there are significant gaps, of course, between not just rich and poor, but north and south. There's been a long north-south divide, with those in northern, upper east and upper west regions, an area containing around 17% of the population and covering around 40% of Ghana's landmass, having significantly less than those in the south. Fewer than 50% of the people in the 3 northern regions have access to electric power supplies, for example, compared with 72% nationally. And this is often mirrored in the provision of amenities and facilities. So, the government of Ghana has set itself the challenging target of providing everyone with health care that is free at the point of use in return for payment of a single one-off premium. It's an extremely ambitious and good goal, and it will require policy formation, funding, institutional development, investment in infrastructure, ICT expertise, and commitment and support of staff. If successful, the Ghanaian government will have a healthcare system of which it can be truly proud, and which is a worthy objective in which Motec can play a small part in helping Ghana to realise that laudable goal. So remember the boy on the beach. It'll make a difference to that one. The things that you do make a difference to that one. Just because you can't solve the problems of the entire world, it's not a reason we're not trying to solve any of them. The Jewish rabbi who said, "A man or woman who saves a single life saves the world," was right. Well, in my city of Liverpool, famous of course for the Beatles, we're famous for comedy, we're famous for football, we're famous for music and all those kinds of things. And it isn't You'll Never Walk Alone, although that might be appropriate, I suppose, this evening, but it's the Beatles song, With a Little Help from My Friends, that I want to remind you about tonight. That's what Motec is all about, in providing a little help from some of Ghana's friends. We have a lot to celebrate here tonight. 10 years of extraordinary achievements, but 10 more years to come. And I know that Dr. Paul will want me to say that he wants you to all be involved in that work. And I have great pleasure now in inviting him as the founder of this marvellous charity to come and speak.
I'm glad it's not a budget. My Lord Professor Lord Alton, His Excellency Mr. Victor Smith, who is represented today by Mr. Dante Asari from the Ghana High Commission, His Worshipful Robert McLean and Wendy from the Dagorum. I know I have colleagues here as well, the co-patron, Mr. Peter Dyson, Professor Nigel Stanfield, the director of the London Postgraduate School of Surgery, Mr. Steve Manion is the chairman of the WC-UK, work with big concern with whom I work very hard. Ladies and gentlemen, Selena, can you give me 5? I don't want to forget you. It is with absolute delight that I join Right Honorable Professor Lord Alton in welcoming you to this 10th anniversary celebration. We know that we have to dedicate ourselves to a common cause. We know that there are choices in life which we have to look at. But as Motec volunteers, we have chosen a path to follow which will actually be part of the rest of our lives. 10 years of this path may not appear to be long, but the achievements over the short time have been remarkable. Considering the poverty and difficulties in the areas we operate, we have achieved so much, especially through our collaboration with the target hospitals in